Hey, what up, guys? It's Damien. So today I wanted to make a video about a tool that really changed, the whole game for me when it came to producing, and that is sample managers, right? So sample managers for me are pretty special. Before, traditionally, like everybody else, this is kind of how I organize my samples. So I would have just like one folder with everything inside of it. And I'll give myself some credit here, right? Like I kind of, organize stuff a little bit with inside of this folder, right? I have like new packs, my loops, my kits. But still, this is like very left brain. You have to get really like left brain with this kind of stuff. And even then still, right? It's really hard to see and know what's inside of here without having to like go through and listen to everything. We got MIDI mixed in here, and it could be a mess. It really can be a mess. And it can make the process of looking for new sounds and sounds that you already own in your library just a headache. And really, you start to associate like negative emotions with the act of producing and the act of finding samples, right? So that's something that we want to avoid. I'm big on mindset on this channel, and that is a huge thing, right? Creating associations that are going to promote us to want to come back to our DAW, want to finish the music. So this is where sample managers come in. So again, like I said, I was using this for the longest time and it was working, right? Because I would link these folders to my DAW, right? And inside of my DAW here, right, that is where that folder shows up. So I can interact with the samples from here, right? I can open up packs. Let's open up the packs from this here. I can go in here and we can click on any of these and hear them, right? So, right. So we have like just a bunch of samples in here. And again, even inside of the DAW, it makes it a little bit easier, right? We can search for stuff, right? So I can search for like specifically snares, right? So I can search for a snare, and inside of here, I get, access to the folder systems that I've created and like favorites. And if I create any other special folders, everything kind of gets stored in here. But again, for me, I don't like clicking through these sub menus. And again, it just makes it very left brain. If I'm in here creating, I don't want to kind of get pulled out of that, right? I want to stay in that same vein of creation. So again, here is where sample managers come in. So, there are tons of different ones out there. There's ADSR sample manager. There's the one by Plugin Alliance, the Mega Sampler. There's a lot out there. I think the thing for you to realize is you just got to find one that fits and suits your workflow. Workflow is like everything, right? That is the main thing that is going to be the driving force of the decision of which one you choose, I believe. But for me, LoopCloud checked a lot of those boxes, right? I wanted to be able to find samples very fast, very efficiently. I wanted to be able to, try them out before I buy them and in context with the music that I'm making, right? So that was like a big thing for me. I wanted to be able to tag my samples, and I wanted something that worked with my already, existing and ever growing sample library. So this just worked perfect, right? Let's walk through it, right? So this is what it'll look like when you first open up LoopCloud. LoopCloud is like a desktop application, right? But it also comes with VSTs, right? So you can open this as a standalone desktop application. As you can see here, it says it's connected to Fruity Loops, right? It's connected to my DAW. In my DAW, like I was saying, it comes with a couple different VSTs, but this is one of them. This is to sync the application to your DAW. So what that means is, like, if I move this tempo up here, right, that is going to reflect inside of LoopCloud. as we move and choose different samples. You'll see in a second. So this is the first menu that you kind of see when you first open it up. You have like the ability to just quick and fast, just select some instruments that you're looking for. You can browse your collections, which we'll go through here in a second. And then you got your packs, right? So this makes it really fast and easy. You could just type something in here really quickly and start looking for matches, right? We also have up here in the right side of the application, this is kind of my favorite thing about LoopCloud. So we have the audio filter section, right? So here we can filter by key. So, if you guys know your piano keys, or if not, just click on it to figure out what key it is, right? But, you can enter in the key here, and then we can, pick whether that is major or minor. And then we start to generate some samples here, right? So these are all samples that work in A minor, right? If you see here, we have a tone slider. So this makes it really awesome. Let's say if you are producing and you have some sounds already picked out and you're just trying to fill in the gaps frequency rise, right? Let's say you have a kick, you have a bass, you have maybe a mid-range element like a piano, and then, you're missing some high mids and you're missing that upper high range, like that would really fit with like a pad or something, right? So what we can do is we can actually limit the amount of frequencies that are in the sample that we want to use, right? So let's just say, 1K to 20K. Let's just see what we get. So when we now get our samples that are generated here in the store, they're sitting on that upper range, right? So if we were to play one, right? They have a lot of high frequency content inside of them, as opposed to if I was to do it on the opposite side. So let's go, 20 hertz to let's go to that bass range, right? Let's go to like 200 and see what we get. More darker elements, right? So this makes it really fun and easy to have some control over your sound selection, whether that is if you are looking for new sounds in the store, or again, if you're going through your own samples that you have stored, which again, just amazing. So then we have the ability to, pick the length of our samples. So if we're looking for really like longer loops, or if we're looking for more like short one shots, this is kind of like how you can have control over that. I mean, you can type one shot up here if that makes it a little bit easier. You can sift between loops and one shots up here. We'll go more into all of this search feature. There's a lot here, but let's dig in. We can go by release date, right? So, recent to later or older. We got BPM, so we can match it. We can match BPM. A cool thing too is a lot of this metadata gets transferred over. So as you can see, we're in the store currently, right? Where our search is being applied to the store, right? But it can also be applied to our own sounds. So you can route your individual folders to LoopCloud, and you can organize and tag and categorize all of your samples within LoopCloud itself. It doesn't necessarily just act as, an interface between you and the marketplace for the samples, right? It is more of like a hub where you can have control over all of the samples you own, right? So, like I said, the searches apply to your own sounds, right? So like if I wanted to come in here and look for a flute sample, right? I type in flute, and these are all of the flute sounds that are, that fit all of the search criteria, that are also in A minor, that are in my sound collection currently, right? So I have the ability to see that and operate within my own sounds. Or if I'm looking for something new and willing to spend my credits, I can go into the store and search, which makes this super fun, right? So another cool feature by LoopCloud is the fact that they have a lot of AI search capabilities within inside of their application. So for instance, let's go to this sample here. Right, so we have like a flute sound. What we can do is we can right click on the sound and we bring up menus here. So we can do a couple things. We can add to a collection, which again, we'll go into in a second. We can edit tags. We can add the AI LoopCloud search function, right? So we can detect the BPM. So again, a lot of this stuff gets handled when you first sync a folder to LoopCloud. It does a lot of things. It reads the metadata from your track. So it understands, like, based off of its name, what instrument it is. It also listens, right? It has some AI features that do some really intelligent listening. Also, they work with companies like JamaHook that are very focused on the AI audio matching capabilities, right? So we can do a lot of cool things in here as far as like detecting the key and instrument if we don't know that already. Again, like I said, if the AI somehow makes a mistake, this can sometimes correct it. But for the most part, it's pretty accurate. But so what we can do with the AI search, though, we have another feature down here, AI search, where now we can search for similar sounds. So we can click this. What this does then is it takes the sample that we just were on, that flute sample, and it tries to find other samples that are both sometimes rhythmically matched, tonally matched, sonically matched, right? So let's take a listen, right? So that was the first sample. And those are within my own library, right? But we can also do that within the store, right? And those are all sounds that I currently don't own yet, but I have the ability to purchase with my credits. So that is just really awesome. If I have a sound that I already love, or I have a sample that I already vibe with, I can use the search feature to find samples in their ever-growing library that I can purchase myself that sound similar. So the AI search feature is just really, really cool. So let's get into like the management side of things, right? So, buying sounds, that's super fun. That deserves like a whole video within itself. But let's go more into the management side. So like I said, one of the main reasons I use this is to organize my samples. Yes, can we buy endless packs and all of this kind of stuff? Yes, right. But we're going to work just with the samples that we already own on our systems, right? So, like I was showing you earlier, I had been working out of this folder for like the longest time, right? So the cool thing about having something like this already set up, right? Instead of having like your folders just spread crazy sporadic and just having maybe one folder on your system that you put everything in, it makes it so much easier when you link things to sample managers, right? So instead of having to go through and find every individual pack here, I only had to link Beatmaker. And in Beatmaker, we have all of those individual packs and individual folders. So just a really clean setup, and I really recommend you guys doing that. But again, so one of the cooler parts about this is you get like a visual aspect to it as well. So let's go into, a folder of mine. We can go into, let's go to 2024, right? And we can just see all of the packs in here. So what I tend to do is when I download new packs, I'll come into LoopCloud and I'll start organizing everything. So the first, depending on how your system works for you, and it's going to be different for everybody, but I like to come in and organize things based off of their instrument. So what we can do is we can come in over here and we can just click this and it sorts it by instrument, right? So now we have like all of our 808s, and we can see that reflected, right? We got cowbells and marimbas and acoustic guitars, right? Ambience, right? So instead of having them all sporadically, spread out, I like to have them organized by the same sound. So another thing that we can do here on the side, and this is like how I go through and sift and organize, right? But we can create collections. So collections, think of it as like subgroups or folders. We can create collections, and inside, when we create a collection, right, we can edit it. We can add cover images. We can add specific names. We can make it public to other people on LoopCloud for people to find, which that's really cool. We could find other people's collections, right? So that makes it super fun. But when we come here to make a collection, another cool thing we can do is we can give that specific collection a tag, right? So anything that we drop in this collection is going to be tagged specifically with something that we choose, right? So if you look here on these collections, anything that gets dropped inside of this texture is going to automatically be given this ambient tag, right? Or, anything that I put inside of here, these tops, right? For instance, these are all percussion top loops, right? Now, when I drop things inside of here, they're automatically going to get tagged with top. So when I come to, my search function here and I type top, yes, that's going to pull stuff up in the store, but if I go to my sounds, it's going to pull up all of the ones that I put inside of my collections, which makes the tagging a lot quicker if you do it this way, right? Like if you use the library system, you can just, highlight multiple samples and drag them into a collection all at once. Or you can right click and add to a collection that way too. So one of the cooler things about LoopCloud as well is if we go to the system preferences, we see that we have actual keyboard shortcuts for the sample manager, which again, that makes that just next level control that we can have here. We can set controls and hotkeys depending on what we really want to be focusing on or doing. A lot of that for me is tagging, right? So I have hotkeys set up in LoopCloud to be able to tag, to be able to add to previous collections, right? So let's say I'm doing it this way. I'm going through all of these instruments and, say for instance, this cowbell. right there, right? Maybe I like that and I want to put that in my perk folder, right? So I can just take that and drop that in my perk and Foley folder in my collection, and that stays in there now, right? And then from there, if I'm listening to another sound, that's also more of a percussive sound. So now if I hit Alt C, you're going to see that perks and Foley's actually got a new track added to it, and that is going to be that new cowbell that we added, right? So there are things that we can do to speed up this process, right? And make it less mundane and more fun and interactive and intuitive, less like left brain going through submenus, right? So again, we can take those samples and put them inside of these collections. Cool thing about it is we don't necessarily need to own the sample yet to put it into a collection, right? Like if you look into my kicks and snares, yeah, there's a lot that I have, right? This yellow icon is indicating that I have this downloaded on my system, right? But if we scroll down here, you'll see ones that have just like these little tokens, right? These are ones that I still haven't purchased yet. Again, because I found them when I was searching and digging through samples, and I was like, wow, that one's really awesome. But I haven't found a track that needed or benefited from this specific sample. So again, I haven't bought it yet, but it still sits inside of this collection. And anytime I do want to use it, I can, right? I can purchase it and use it in one of my tracks. So this just makes it really freaking awesome, both where you're going through your own library, right? You're going through your own sounds that you have, but also when you are just exploring, right? And looking through stuff, you can quickly just add something to your collection and then buy it later if you really wanted to, or if, let's say you didn't have credits, right? But yeah, so that's a game-changing feature. So we also have another hotkey. So like Command T will bring out the tags editor. So in the tags editor, that is where we can do a lot of even more detailed, fine work about like what these tags are, right? So we can add new instrument tags. Let's say, it got it wrong. For instance, one of these sounds said it was a cowbell and it sounded more like a perk to me. I could change that if I wanted to. I could change the file name. I can change all of the metadata here. This is where I can really edit that. So if you're making your own samples, this makes it even more fun and a way that you can really control that metadata and make it a parameter that is searchable, right? But you can see here, it gives you a lot of different information based off of its AI engine. And so we can come here and we can change things. So, I can add an additional tag to this. I could put, cow, right, as a tag, right? So now when I go through my library and I search cow, that one sound will pop up, right? I have it set for other things, for instance, like if I type in trap, for instance, that is going to pull up, a whole category of sounds that I've tagged myself as well, right? So that just makes it a little bit interesting, a little bit fun to work with here. Like I was saying, we can tag a lot of things. We can make things unique and really searchable. I think that is the biggest pro to this, is that added organization actually gives you so much added creativity, right? Organization counterintuitively frees you up creatively. Cool thing too, right? We have a history tab, so we can go back, if we ever needed to in history, and we can both see what we're doing and go back to that stage. So that's always fun, right? I think so. I kind of saved the last part or the best part for last, right? So with LoopCloud, one of the biggest reasons, again, why I use this, all of these features are just fire, but I found myself, so when I first started using samples, I found myself using plugins like Serato Sample, right? Or like other samplers to manipulate my samples as I pulled them in, right? I didn't want to just use, maybe some drum one shots, right? But like, I didn't want to just use most samples as is. I wanted to add some flavor or some uniqueness to it, right? So I found myself having to use multiple third-party plugins, which I still do, right? I still use like things like Shaperbox and Infiltrator and a whole bunch of different mangling plugins to do crazy stuff to my samples, right? But I think sometimes using, Splice and just pulling samples in and then having to manipulate them later with a sampler if I wanted to, or, I think that is just an extra process that I was having to take, right? So with LoopCloud, we have down here, we have, right, some transport controls, but next to it, we have this edit feature. So when we click this edit feature, we open ourselves up to a whole bunch of different processes that we can take. The beauty about this is that this works with both samples that are in the store that we can buy, and this also works for our own samples. So this is what makes it, in my head, way worth it, because we can manipulate our own samples, and we can manipulate samples before we even buy them. Right? And we can hear that in context of our track. So in this edit feature, right, we have a couple different tools here. So we have the pointer, the split, the slip, the mute, the reverse, the pitch, and the draw. And with these tools selected, that allows us to do, certain things, manipulate the audio. Right. Which again is just really cool to be able to do that right here inside of the area where we can either buy samples or interact and interface with our own collection. So again, just crazy, right? We can do things like we can halftime it, right? We can also switch BPM. We can key pitch. Right? But here's where it really gets interesting. So we can click here where it says edit on effects, and we open this tab where we can click and add extra effects. So we have some interesting stuff. We have compression, delays, EQs, filters, grain and stretch delays, right? Panning, reverb, stop reverse, tone box, and vinyl stop. We can also create our own presets from these, these little modules inside of here. So let's go to more of a melodic sample. So we can take something like this. Just quickly gonna stretch this. Now let's add some effects to that. That's really cool. So what we can do here is we can click on this export tab, and we can just make sure that this is set to processed, right? And what I can do there is then I can just click, drag it out, and now I have my sample inside of here, inside of my DAW, right? That I just created the effect with, which, oh my God, that just saves, again, so much time, right? Like, I can be a little bit creative with my samples before they even touch my DAW. Again, this isn't for everybody, but again, the ability to be able to do this is just fire, right? So we can edit the sample and we can pull it in, right? As you were seeing up here, we have some different export options. So we can process it as a sampled effect, right? With all of our processing effects that we put on there. But we can also export it out as just the original file. You're seeing here, we also have this ability to do current mix, right? And process current tracks. So interesting thing about LoopCloud is we have 8 different spaces here on the bottom to add extra tracks. So we can have something like this. I can open another track. Right? And now I could bring in multiple loops at once and test things out to see how they work and play together. Right? That to me might, like, I never use it this way, right? I never use it like that ever. Because to me, that's just a really chaotic thing. But, you know, it may work if you're trying to blend samples together to create like a really interesting bed, or, you know, maybe like this where you're trying to put samples together to create a track. I would never really do that, but it does work, right? So the cool thing too is, so quickly, let's just take a drum loop. Let's take that drum loop that we had. Let's pull that inside of LoopCloud. Right? So we have our drum loop here. Let's just set a loop. So like I was saying, one of the really awesome things about this software is now that I have that drum loop set up in my DAW, I can hit play. Right. Let me actually turn that down a little bit. Cool. I can hit play, and now that I hit play, any sample that I audition now is going to be auditioned in time. Whether it is the BPM of my track or not is going to be time stretched to fit my track. Also, I can key lock this track as well to make sure that it is in a key that I want it to be in, right? Like if I want it to be an A minor, it's gonna transpose everything. But let's just check it out without any of those features.
It could be me. I'll be there for you. Maybe it could be me. Baby, it could be.
And let's say I find something I like, right? I can then take that. And then, you know, if I wanted to, I could add some variety to it, right? So again, it just makes it really awesome. And then I can keep going from there, right? So that is also another beautiful thing about this is I can just keep going from there. I can just keep playing that. Let's take this. Again, let's make this a little bit quieter. So now we know we're in E minor. So let's stick to that, right? So we can come to our audio filters. We can go to E minor. Let's see if we have anything that works.
Leave me alone. It's turning me gonna bataille.
When you stand close to me, it's
right. Again, this is just for an example, but it makes the creation process really fun. Again, I don't use samples for everything, but this makes the process a whole lot funner when you want to add an extra layer or you want to just have a spark of creativity. Again, being able to open this is just next level inside of the DAW and work like this. So that is the standalone application. LoopCloud also, like I was saying before, it comes with a couple other things. So we also have the LoopCloud Sounds app. So this is a VST that comes with LoopCloud as well. And so where this one differs is that this one is less of like obviously it's not a standalone application, and it's more for like if you've already categorized some sounds and especially if you've already created some collections, right? It makes it really easy to streamline this, and there is no using the LoopCloud VST to sync. Like everything is already synced to your DAW. What I've seen is the search features are just a little bit lacking in comparison, right? Like what I like to think of is when you first get some samples and you really want to do the heavy duty categorization and really look through and hunt down samples, use the application. And then if you're inside of your DAW and you're creating and you don't want to be bogged down, you can use this. This still works as a search, right? So you can either search your sounds or the library and buy sounds. But again, like I said, this works best if you already have some collections. So like you were seeing, I had, my, let's go to my kick and snare collection, right? So if I open that up inside of here, I have access to all of those kicks and snares. So at a glance, it makes it just really, really easy. So I can just pull, a sample in if I wanted to and start working with it inside of FL Studio, right? So again, just different workflows suit different people. But baseline, like I said, I think a sample manager in general will just put you in a whole nother caliber if you're working with sample-based music or sample-based genres. Again, any modern genre like pop, hip hop, like any of these modern genres, even EDM, they use a lot of sampled drums and one shots and stuff like that. So, the more that you get into it, the more that I would highly recommend you start finding a sample manager that suits your needs and it fits your style and your workflow. Right. I'm not necessarily recommending that you go out and use LoopCloud. If you like the features that are in this sample manager, go out and use it. Right. But main thing, find one that works for you and use it long term. I think that is the biggest thing with the sample managers is whichever one you choose, just make sure that you are using it consistently. You don't need to do it for 3-4 hours a day, 15 minutes a day. And before you know it, at the end of the year, you have an amazing, organized sample library, right? So take it in strides, one step at a time, and just have fun with it. That's going to wrap up our video today. I hope you guys got something out of this. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.